There's this myth in Hollywood that a movie has to make $1 billion to be a real success. Truth is that number means nothing if you're blowing $500 million just to get the thing made. What actually matters is return on investment. I tracked down 10 movies that made the most money per dollar ever. The Devil Inside is pure Hollywood money-making, and Paramount was looking to repeat what they did with Paranormal Activity. It's the same playbook, documentary style, shot for cheap, this time directed and co-written by William Brent Bell. The movie was produced for about $1 million, and in Surge, Paramount's low-budget label, picked it up as their first release. The idea was clear: copy Paranormal Activity's success and see what happens. The gamble worked at first. The Devil Inside pulled in $34.5 million its opening weekend, and worldwide it finished with $101.8 million. Return on investment here was about 3,649%. Estimated net profit was over $37 million. It was exactly what studios hope for, licensed to print money. But it came with some of the worst reviews you'll ever see, just 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. The movie pulled an infamous move. It ends not with an actual ending, but with a title card that tells people to visit a website for more info. That was actually a studio idea. It backfired completely. Audiences felt ripped off, some demanded refunds, the site crashed within hours, and the film ended up with an F cinema score, something that almost never happens. The backlash was so loud it probably helped the first weekend's numbers, but word of mouth killed it fast. A record 76% drop in the second weekend. I'm pretty sure Paramount didn't care though. The money was already in the bank. Go back almost a century and it's the same principle. The Big Parade, directed by King Vidor and adapted from Lawrence Stallings' memoir, was made for about $382,000. It broke the mold for war movies, showing the real loss and the cost of war, so audiences ate it up. Total box office ended up over $18 million. That's a 4,396% return. MGM had never seen anything like it. This was their top-earning film of the entire silent era, and nothing even came close until Gone with the Wind in 1939. The reason it made so much is actually simple. The Big Parade just wouldn't leave theaters. In big cities, it stayed on screens for more than a year. Unthinkable now when movies get 3 weeks, maybe a month. That extra time meant it just kept bringing in cash, week after week. Some call it the most successful silent film ever, rivaled only by The Birth of a Nation. But financially, no other studio picture from the era did numbers like this. Documentaries rarely make a dent at the box office, but this one was different. 6 years after losing the presidential race, Al Gore returned, this time with climate change as his platform. The movie's budget was just $1 million. Almost nothing, just a stage, a bunch of slides, and Al Gore himself. It opened huge for a documentary, set records for per-theater average, and ended with $49.8 million worldwide. That's a 4,726% return on investment. The movie even won 2 Oscars. Gore donated 100% of his earnings from the movie to a nonprofit alliance for climate protection and educational campaigns. He didn't take a dime for himself. David Lynch started Eraserhead as a student project at American Film Institute with an initial grant that barely covered the basics. The production took 5 years, mostly because Lynch kept running out of money. He begged and borrowed from everyone he knew. Sissy Spacek and Jack Fisk put in cash. Jack Nance's wife worked crew for free. Lynch himself started delivering the Wall Street Journal at night for $48 a week just to keep buying film stock. He even moved into the campus stables to save on rent. At one point, the cast was literally down to Lynch, a camera, and a half-built hallway set. The result was a movie nobody really understood, but everyone remembered. Eraserhead debuted in 1977 with only midnight screenings and a tiny audience, but word of mouth turned it into a cult classic. The film played for years in art house. The $100,000 budget ended up turning into $7.1 million at the box office. That's over $5 million in clean profit. a 5,412% return. More importantly, Eraserhead launched David Lynch's career. Its notoriety brought Mel Brooks' Calling, which landed Lynch his next film, The Elephant Man, and 8 Oscar nominations. Horror is always a smart bet for investment, and The Gallows is proof. Directors Chris Loafing and Travis Clough started with absolutely nothing. After Clough lost his job, he went on the game show Wipeout, won the $50,000 grand prize, and used it to start making micro-budget horror. With just $100,000 total, they shot a found-footage movie about a cursed high school play and a group of students haunted 20 years after a tragedy. The project took 2 years locally. It was originally called Stage Fright. Then the first trailer went viral on YouTube and got the attention of Blumhouse and New Line, who picked it up. Producer Jason Blum pushed the directors to reshoot 80% of the film to make it scarier, and the process turned into a 4.5-year odyssey of auditions, reshoots, and editing headaches. One of the original actresses lost 40 pounds, so her role had to be recast and reshot. In the end, The Gallows became maybe the cheapest movie ever to get a worldwide wide release. It opened on 2,000-plus screens, grossed $43 million, and scored a 7,487% return. Critics gave it 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, but basically nobody cared. Even with all the reshoots and long production, net profit was about $7.5 million after all the costs. Directed by Alex Kendrick and starring Kirk Cameron, this movie is about a fire captain whose marriage falls apart and how a faith-based challenge helps him put it back together. Critics, of course, hated it, but audiences turned out in droves. It became the highest-grossing indie of 2008 with a 9,465% return. The movie was a full church project. Sherwood Baptist Church in Georgia produced it, and almost all cast and crew, that's over 1,200 people, worked for free as volunteers. Only a dozen professionals were brought in. The church provided the locations, fire trucks, and even catering. That kept the budget at just $500,000. The film earned $57 million at the box office. Tie-in sales were massive. The Love Dare, a book featured in the film, became a New York Times bestseller, and the DVD sold over 3.5 million units. What's nice here is that instead of private profit, Sherwood poured proceeds into charity. They built an 82-acre sports park, funded some ministry work, and supported new church plants. Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a perfect example of how you make a real return. Hooper, a bunch of friends, and barely $140,000. Nobody thought it would become a classic, but that's exactly what happened. The movie brought in $30.9 million at the box office. That's a 10,018% return on investment. On paper, it looked like everybody involved was about to get rich. That's not how it played out. The producers needed distribution, so they sold the rights to Bryanston Distributing Company. At the time, nobody realized this was basically a front for the mob. Bryanston was run by the Paranormal family, who'd already made a fortune distributing Deep Throat. When Chainsaw became a hit, Bryanston started playing games with the books. The cast and crew were promised 35% of profits. In reality, thanks to mob-style creative accounting, the film was always in the red. 20 people who worked on the movie got a combined $8,100, around $400 each. Bryanston kept millions. The lawsuits dragged out for years. In 1983, a court ordered Bryanston to pay $500,000 in royalties, but by then the company had gone bankrupt after an FBI crackdown. So most of that money just vanished. It wasn't until the mid-1980s, when New Line Cinema finally took over the rights, that the filmmakers saw any real earnings. Actor Edwin Neal summed it up. "The only film I ever did that made millions, and I didn't see squat." Oren Peli made the whole movie in his own house for just $15,000, basically the cost of lunch on a studio set. 2 unknown actors, 1 handheld camera, and a lot of improvising. Paramount spent some extra money, $200,000, on post-production and marketing, but the original investment was still nothing compared to the return. Paranormal Activity made $193 million worldwide, with a net profit around $90 million after all expenses. That's a return of 19,895%. The film helped launch Blumhouse as the king of micro-budget horror and kicked off a 6-film franchise. It would eventually pull in almost $900 million at the box office. The story of how it got released is pure Hollywood legend. Steven Spielberg took home a screener to watch. After finishing, the door to his empty bedroom mysteriously locked itself from the inside. Spielberg freaked out a little and brought the disc back to the studio in a garbage bag, joking it was haunted. And then he pushed Paramount to give the movie a real release instead of just remaking it. Another Alex Kendrick film and another lesson in just how profitable the faith-based movie can be. Facing the Giants took the sports movie formula, added a heavy dose of Christian messaging, and ended up with a 24,724% return on investment. Sherwood Baptist Church, the same crew behind Fireproof, made this one for around $100,000. Almost nobody on set was a professional, just 5 paid crew, with the rest being church volunteers. They literally did everything from playing football fans to running makeup and lighting. They shot the entire movie on a single HD camera, used local facilities, and kept the budget non-existent. Basically, it was like a giant church project funded by donations and prayer. People literally chipped in after Sunday service. Sony picked up distribution for their Faith imprint and dropped it onto 441 screens. Nothing huge. But the movie ended up grossing $10.2 million at the box office. Net profit was actually even higher because there were another $27.4 million in DVD sales. So total net profit was close to $25 million. Profits didn't just disappear into pockets either. Sherwood Baptist rolled the earnings back into ministry. If you're talking about pure return on investment, nothing touches Deep Throat. It was produced for $22,500, and they spent another $25,000 on music. All of it was actually mob money from the Paranormal crime family. This movie was never supposed to go mainstream. But 1972 was the time when X-rated movies started pulling in regular crowds and getting reviewed in real newspapers. So this one ended up in theaters and exploded. Estimates for its total gross get wild. Some claim over $600 million, but the FBI and later researchers agree it made at least $30 to $50 million in its initial run, and probably much more after. That's a minimum 90,014% return. Even if you believe only the lowest figures, Deep Throat is still the most profitable film of all time. It became a cash cow for the mob. Every night, mafia bagmen literally collected suitcases full of unreported cash from theaters. The director Gerard Damiano barely saw a dime. Linda Lovelace, the star, got just $1,250. Her co-star Harry Reams got $250. Meanwhile, the mob walked away with millions offshore. In 1976, prosecutors managed to convict the Paranos for obscenity and conspiracy, but by then most of the money had disappeared.